But it cost South Dakota a tremendous sum of money, cost the farmers in South Dakota. And that affects all business. And Mr. Thatcher mentioned, what good are the cooperatives if the farmer is busted? Well, of course, they're going to be no good because the farmer owns the cooperatives. The cooperatives will go busted along with him. Mr. Thatcher called to our attention last week in an article or an advertisement which appeared in the May 2nd issue of the St. Paul I happen to have the ad with me. I just wanted to point out to you about this tax business. But Northern States Power, of course, as you know, is one of the big power interests in the nation, and they carried almost a full-page ad in the paper with Cedric Adams telling about what happens to the $69.34 electric bill paid by the average homeowner. What happens to the $69.34? And goes on to say that they pay labor, they construct some facilities, and they pay taxes. And it says out of this $69.34, $17.70 of it goes for taxes. So it just proves the point that, after all, you and I and the other average person in the United States pay the tax bills for all business. Northern States Power is just a collector of money for the county, city, state, and federal government, just like all other business is. But this was so glaringly important that I think some of us missed it. I know I did. I very seldom look at the ads in St. Paul Pioneer Press and Dispatch, and I wouldn't have looked at this one if it hadn't been for the fact that Mr. Thatcher called it to our attention last Saturday. But getting to the program that we have before us, I just want to kind of roughly outline our position in the entire scheme of things as it relates to cooperation and farm organization. I know that I don't have to spend a lot of time telling you about the Central Exchange, but as to South Dakota, I just want to give you some idea as to what our men are out here for. First, of course, you know that the Central Exchange is organized under Minnesota law, so it's a Minnesota corporation that's licensed to do business in these various states. And that's all I have to say about that. It is a cooperative wholesale serving local cooperative companies in 5 of these northwest states and northern Wyoming. In South Dakota, we have our field staff divided about like this. First, we have a state field supervisor. We have 4 what we call general field representatives, and they're assigned to districts. Their work is to work with managers and other employees of local cooperatives and the board of directors. Now, those of you who are in field work know pretty well what that means. But those of you who are not exactly in field work, I just want to say to you that the name probably doesn't represent all of the work that they have to do. They have a tremendous responsibility in working with these local cooperatives to see that they are carrying on their operations in a manner that's for the benefit of the owners, who are the farmers, and they have no direct authority over them, and they work pretty much in an advisory capacity with them. We have one machinery block man in the state, and as pointed out to you here this morning, this afternoon was introduced, he pretty well covers all of the area in which we have some affiliated cooperatives. And his job, of course, is to work with managers and the other employees and with directors in the areas where they are handling farm machinery to give them whatever assistance he can on troublesome matters, help them do some selling, if that's possible, and do a little service work. Occasionally, we have some specialty men come out to call on some of these managers and other employees, and sometimes to meet the board of directors on specific things. We have another service with we have special men go into an area where they're having some difficulty and spend probably as much as a month at a time working right on amongst the farmers for that little local cooperative out here. So that in a general way gives you some ideas that of the work of these men. On occasion, if they can, they will attend meetings of Farmers Union gatherings. They attend stockholders meetings, and they come in contact with a large number of people. In the understanding we've arrived at here, they will, much as they possibly can, stress all these various points that we've kind of come into agreement on in a general way, so that the people will know that we are trying to cooperate the whole way down the line with all the different groups within the Farmers Union to do an overall job for the farmer here in this state and in the other states. We have some facilities here in South Dakota. They're not large or extensive, but we have a few LP gas plants. We have a general merchandise warehouse at Sioux Falls. We have a machinery warehouse at Aberdeen, all designed to render a service to the local cooperatives and the farmer back of them. I think we're a little bit different than any other cooperative wholesale that happens to be operating in the state, because we go the whole way down the line in support of a farm program for the farmer. And it's important for all of you to know that we're not familiar with the Central Exchange as much as you probably should be. In a general way, we've kind of subscribed to the general policy statement, and you all have a copy of it, and I presume that you'll look at it occasionally. That doesn't mean that we're not going to find ourselves probably in difficulty once in a while, because we may misunderstand what we're attempting to do. But there's one sure thing, that we can't disagree very much on the 100% parity for the farmer if we expect the farmer to prosper. And without a prosperous farmer, I don't think these farmer cooperatives are going to be very prosperous either. That goes for the local level as well as the regional level, because we're all governed by the prosperity of the man on the land who own all of these cooperative institutions. I doubt very much if livestock can go very far without the farmer getting a price for his livestock. I doubt very much if grain marketing at the local level and the regional level are going to get along very well if the farmer don't get a price for his grain that will more than pay his cost of producing it. And I don't think that the farm supply cooperatives, both local and regional, are going to be very prosperous if the farmer don't get a price for the product he produces so he can pay for the things that he has to buy in the daily operations of his farm. And I think those are important points for you folks, all of you, who are in the field, to stress whenever you meet with boards of directors, managers, other employees, and stockholders. Particularly the stockholders, those of you in the Central Exchange, for example, meeting with stockholders, where there may be 50 people, maybe 100 or 300. It's important for you to point those things out to them in a manner that they just can't misunderstand what you're talking about. And I'm sure that after this meeting you're going to be in a better position to stress those points if you haven't already been stressing them. As to some managers, I think it's safe to say, particularly in the farm supply field, I'm not going to say anything about the grain marketing, but I'm sure that we'll find in many instances where we may have managers or employees who do not understand the implications of the Farmers Union in fighting for a parity price per farmer. I'm sure they don't understand why the regional cooperatives as a group give support to the payment of educational funds, as an example, to the Farmers Union in the respective states to help along on a farm program. And you have to sell them on it. You have to point out to them that if it wasn't for the farmer being prosperous in his area, and point it out to him very specifically, he wouldn't have much of encouragement of making that cooperative a success, or the success that it should have. And probably it'll scare them quicker if they have a crop failure in an area, but we hope they don't have that in order to scare them. But it's really true. We run into it many, many times in the farm supply end of it, where there are managers who are just managers. They don't think beyond just manage that institution. And until something happens, and it's too late after it's happened, because after the crop is gone, or if it never arrived at all, why, it doesn't hurt him until it happens. And he should be just as enthusiastic about a farm program as any of us in this here room. And I think it's your job to sell him on the farm program. You have to stay there a little longer than you normally would stay on a regular business call. I think that all of these points where we have affiliated cooperatives, it's important to point out the central exchange position and whatever support it does give to the South Dakota Farmers Union, as example, can only come if we have earnings. And you don't get earnings unless you have some volume. And you can't just have volume unless there's some kind of a margin. And in other words, you can't pay dollars and still pay education funds. Just aren't there. So if we're going to be as effective as we think we should be in giving assistance to the entire overall farm program for the interest of the farmer, the only way we can do it, as we see it, is to get that volume and have some savings where we can pay increasing education funds annually. And much as some people may probably disagree with us on education funds, it's the most painless way there is of building a strong farm organization, because it don't cost anything in the final analysis. It don't cost the farmer anything in the final analysis, because if you're giving that business to somebody else, they keep the whole works. In this way, whatever is left, they keep it less what they pay to maintain or help maintain a strong militant. indirectly make a contribution to the educational funds paid to the Central Exchange of the South Dakota Farmers Union, because if it wasn't for that volume of business coming from the South Dakota cooperatives to the Farmers Union Central Exchange, the educational funds would be less than they are today. So if we want larger educational funds to come to South Dakota Farmers Union to help in this overall program of trying to build a family-type farm system in this United States and maintain it and get a parity price for the farmers, we can do that by increasing the volume of business. And we shouldn't be ashamed to go out and ask for the business, because the farmer has it to give to somebody, and he's giving it to somebody every day. And don't think for a minute, just because you organize a cooperative, or just because we have a farmers union, that the business is going to come automatically. It isn't going to come that easy. I will say this, that where we have an understanding membership, by and large, we will have a better coordinated cooperative. But we find in South Dakota, where we have some membership in the Farmers Union and many Farmers Union cooperatives in the farm supply end that are not transacting the business with the Central Exchange. There are many reasons for it. But eventually I hope that we can get that business, because I believe when the farmers in the area joined the Farmers Union, that they joined the entire program. They just didn't join one part of it. And we ought to be striving to get that Farmers Union business, so-called, and there's a lot of it in the state, channeled into Farmers Union activities and not channeled through some other organization. Some goes to private organizations and some go to competing regional wholesales. And we shouldn't be ashamed to go out and try to get that business, because it belongs in the Farmers Union family. I believe it belongs in the Farmers Union family for no other reason than that the whole Farmers Union groups as a total are fighting for agriculture and the individual farmer as well as the farmers as a group. And we ought to go out and try to prove to him that it's to his best interest to channel his volume of business in the area into the cooperatives, local and regional, that are fighting his battles and not just being another business. So you don't have to be ashamed to go out and ask for it. I think it's important to ask for it, because it's not going to come of its own accord. The Central Exchange, for those of you who are not too familiar with it, I want to say to you that it started out pretty small from the standpoint of the cooperative movement as a whole in this Northwest. The grain and livestock marketing were first in the field. I think dairy came along right afterwards or about the same time, and the farm supply business is along about 20 to 25 years old as a whole. Because prior to that time, it was the horse and buggy age, and they raised the oats and the hay to feed the horse, and when they went into the mechanized age on the farm, why, they had to get something else but hay and oats to feed to that tractor and the other power equipment. So that, in effect, started your farm supply business some 20 to 25 years ago. So it's kind of